morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Monday, September 22nd, 2025. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Happy Monday, everyone. Here's a look at the ES in the daily time frame. Something to keep an eye on here is how we begin the RT8 session here. We could be looking at a pullback here that takes us into the previous week's midpoint, which is 66.71. If we start to fail through 66.71, it opens up the potential for an outside week down, at least early on in the week, into 66.11. That right there takes out the previous week's low. Now, at the RTH open, are we going to be below the previous session's midpoint at the RTH open? That could create some bearish MGR sell signals that could lead to early weakness here as well. Now, here's the thing. On these pullbacks here, we've seen buying opportunities. So how much of a pullback might we get? Do we get a buying opportunity? Or do we finally see a push through 6,600 that opens up a broader correction up ahead? As of right now, the melt-up phase has been in full effect. We are opening up a bearish seasonal window right now, which could lead to a bit of a counter trend move. But how does the market respond here on that pullback if we get one here? So early on here, keep an eye on a push perhaps into the previous week's midpoint, 66.71. Any failure there, and that opens up a broader correction early this week. Looking at the NQ here, down about 0.25% right now. Both the ES and NQ are both trading 54% of average range right now, heading into the RTH open, both with pullbacks toward the previous session's midpoint. Again, where are we at the RTH open? If we're below the mid, that could open up extra bearish open here with some selling pressure that could take place into the previous week's midpoint. Again, if we get that low, that's going to be 24,565. 24,565 is going to be right about here. So that would be the previous week's midpoint. Any pullback that deep could be a buying opportunity, but a failure at that mid opens up a broader correction against the previous week's range. So far, we have seen a push away from the FOMC key level here after the Fed cut rates here last Wednesday. Any pullback could be into that level as well for a short-term retest. All right, looking at crude oil, this one's down 1% right now. And again, another demonstration of a decent rally leading into a much more aggressive correction. We've seen it here, we've seen it here. Any pullback, any bounce has been heavily sold. This market just has trouble going up right now. It has been held down, and we keep pointing to the lower FOMC key level, 58.20. It hasn't really wanted to get there at all. It's just wanted to stay in this zone. But at some point here, every single rotation that gets rejected up here starts to lead to a broader pullback here into that 58.20 and maybe into 54. We are coming into a part of the seasonality here where heavy selling pressure could be seen over the next 2.5 months. That window tends to open in the first week or after the first week of October. So we could be looking at more selling pressure ahead, especially into that seasonal window. All right, looking at gold futures, big time rally out of gold here. 1 1/3% higher, 37.55. That's a big time continuation to new highs. The other thing I've noted before is on a breakout from this narrow range here, well, that's a 500 point back end, but it got compressed. The breakout into 3,500 or through that level opens up 4,000. Now, if you can get halfway to that mark before we get a retest of the breakout level, that increases the odds of getting across to the primary target or the far end target of 4,000. And now any pullback, even as deep as 3,500, still offers a buying opportunity for a continuation to 4,000. So right now, gold remains highly bullish. This pullback right into the bullish Pima trigger zone was defended already to new highs. This thing remains on path for a continuation toward 4,000. And any pullback, even an early pullback next month, as we step on the pivot range, could be a buying opportunity for a continuation up. Doesn't necessarily have to be as deep as 3,500, could be just 36 or 3650, whatever it is, could still be a buying opportunity for a continuation toward 4K. All right, looking at the YM, this one is down 0.5% right now, is trading half of average daily range, and currently is trading below the Friday midpoint. That, after closing above that midpoint, that could open up early selling pressure at the RTH open, where we're testing the previous lows, perhaps dropping into the 8-period average. That could carry out throughout the day, and I would keep an eye on the YM early on for directional conviction here. This one's leading lower at the moment. It's the most below the previous session's midpoint. And if this one's going to carry down lower here, 46,379, 43,679 is the, 46,379. 46,379 is the previous week's midpoint. Through that level will give us early directional conviction to the previous week's low. That's going to be right at 46K. So we could be looking at early weakness here out of the YM. The other thing is, this is one that has lifted the least away from its FOMC key level. So is the first move going to be offered away from that level that takes us down and then maybe back to it down the road? So keeping an eye here on the previous week's midpoint, 46,379, for potential failure. This one right here going to be opening below the previous session's midpoint after closing above it. That's MGR sell signals that could be developing from there. All right, looking at ET. Now let's go to Bitcoin. Bitcoin down 2% right now. Down 2%, a big time pullback. We mentioned before that this previous month's midpoint was going to be important, and if a failure there occurs after that higher high failure into 125K, we could be looking at a broader pullback ahead. I've noted that the next best buying opportunity for a longer term payout or return will be below 100K. So any action that happens here could be a lot of back and forth, but the real good entry will be somewhere between 95 and 100K at the very least, and then we'll see if there's a broader pullback from there. But that right there could lead to the next 25 and 50% returns down the road. But again, got to see how this thing plays out. For right now, that's a pretty heavy pullback after a narrow multi-day range. If this thing stays near the lows of the day or continues to extend, this could lead to quite the bearish week here to the downside, and currently this is happening away from the newly minted FOMC key level. Likewise, ETH, this one's down over 5% right now. That's a pretty big drop. Both of these, if you look at the intraday time frame, right at 1 a.m. Central, had flash drops, so flash crash drops there, where this one dropped from 4,300 straight down to 4,000. That's a pretty big and aggressive move right there. I've noted before that this one here just hasn't been able to get going to the upside, and the best opportunity here longer term, as I've mentioned, would be 3,000 to 3,100. Right there could be the next 50% to 100% return down the road if we were able to get back that far down. So again, anticipating some weakness here out of this one, already seeing that. That's why I've mentioned before, you've got to continue to trim at these levels here just in case. Raise capital for the next major correction, and any pullback here sub 3,200 could be a great opportunity longer term. We'll see where that low end comes in at, but as of right now, this early selling pressure, this flash crash at 1 a.m. here, is this an indication of more weakness to come? The other thing to look for here is the higher value relationship that's developed here into the new month up ahead, but with the current bearish bias, that would suggest that the up move is done, and any pullback could be a selling opportunity. We could be looking at more weakness up ahead here for ETH. All right, that is it for now. We'll see how this plays out here heading into the rest of the week. Good luck, trade well, and I'll see you in the trading room. Take care.